Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the ILBATDs podcast. Week 7 in the books. Week 8, here we come. Joined, as always, by Mr. Cameron Cooper and Mr. Colin Hampton. Welcome back to the show, both of you. Colin, glad to welcome another member to the ILBATDs family this week. Your comments on the birth?
Yes, thank you. I'm proud to announce that I have a son now. You can call him C4 if you want. He's going to be an explosive athlete.
That goes hard as a nickname.
Yes, yes. We have to get him into sports first, so it could take a while before it to actually land. But we're not calling him that, at this early age, even though he has had some explosive, events lately.
There's
But
been fire in the hole.
yes, yes. But we'll leave that for another time. But yes, proud to be a father of two now. Um, and here we are. Low sleep. I thought I was on low sleep before. This is another level. So
Well, let's dive into the week that was week 7. Some interesting matchups we talked about. The one we'll talk about last, the preview of the Turlet Bowl, the one that everyone had their eyes on this week. Not a lot of close matchups this week. I think the closest was a 20-point difference. So there wasn't a lot of Monday night drama for once, and I don't even think really. I mean, the median wasn't that interesting. It was like 2.5 points, and I don't think it really came down to any late action on that either. So let's dive right in. I predicted that Trevor would destroy me. He sent a video of him destroying me behind his bots. It wasn't close. There was like no drama in this whatsoever. Like I think Sleeper gave me like a 3% chance at the beginning of the week, and that proved to be like probably too generous. Daniel Jones is the bright spot on my fantasy team. Put that on the bingo card of things I didn't think would be the case through 7 weeks of the year. The only good news is we got CD back. Maybe we'll get some other guys back, but yeah, we just like when we're starting Lil Jordan Humphrey and not the good McCaffrey, we're struggling to find guys. I feel like we're the replacements right now, and Trevor just has guys up and down his roster.
and Bam Knight.
Yeah,
I mean, last week you were starting a guy with 5 broken ribs and a few other,
I started him again. No, I started him again. Yeah,
yeah, but you had a few disclaimers for all these guys that are waiver pickups. I mean, your
right.
only hope is that all the players at the bottom of your roster, 4 key players that are just out, hopefully they can come back soon enough to hell you into the playoffs. But this is Trevor, setting his best lineup again, scoring 150 in back-to-back weeks. This is what we're all afraid of. Multiple positions scoring over 20 points. The number one player, Mahomes, just doing it again. Not even having to play the whole fourth quarter, I think, or at least the majority of that fourth quarter being up on the piss poor Raiders. There's a few teams that are just like more pathetic than other years, and Raiders is happens to be one of them. Um, but Trevor's team, this is what it looks like at its best, and I wouldn't want to be in his way anytime soon or anytime in the last third of the season, for that matter.
Yeah, it's tough when your wide receiver 2 and 3 combined for 0, and his wide receiver 2 and 3 combined for 50.
Yeah.
That's tough. That's a tough week for AJ Brown and Devontae Adams to really pop off. I mean, even Ramondre Stevenson getting some looks here. This is a tough week. It seemed like a couple teams in this league kind of sleptwalked, to your original point about this week. Yeah, unfortunately, maybe you were just waiting on some guys to get healthy or get off a bye. Still, almost 100 points with what is the little giants on your team. But yeah, Trevor is looking as strong as ever. Had a little bit of a slumber there the last 2 weeks, but he's back and he's back with a vengeance.
Another team that is right there on the cut line of the playoffs, another 5-9 squad. Willie did improve his point total from last week, but still lost by 50 to Eric, who, another team that was sort of sleepwalking, I feel like, early in the season. He found himself outside the playoff line earlier in the year, but squarely inside now, looking at the 6 seed with a 3-game cushion over the 9 seed, myself and Willie. Yeah, not particularly close here. Devonta Smith with the longest catch of his career was hugely helpful. Willie started Debo, who did not end up playing. 35 from Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, he had himself a day, but really, like, Eric's team didn't have a great game, but he had 2 guys go off, and Willie just didn't. He had one in Keenan Allen, and that was sort of the difference. But if you look up and down, there's like a lot of red on both sides in terms of players that underperformed actually.
Yeah, this was Willie's massive bye week between Buffalo and Baltimore. So at least he can put that in his rear view, and maybe all those players can come back and turn this thing around for him. I would say it's unlikely, but it's possible. He's within reach. And then Eric, this is good for him. This is, he was middle of the pack last week. He still is number 6 in the league right there, but putting up 136, that feels good. He's got the number 1 tight end in Jake Ferguson, which is crazy because he's the number 1 tight end and 38th overall player. And that tells you where tight ends are in this league. And that brings me to, proposing that we do tight end premium next year. If the number 1 tight end is arguably the 40th best player in the league, I feel like we need to get tight ends a little bit more relevant. He's having a great season, Jake Ferguson. But I want tight ends to be more of a factor. Just because, it's a position that everyone needs to start. But either way, big game from Jahmyr Gibbs. He's looking like that number 4 overall pick, top 3, top 4 pick. So good on Eric, and I think this is what we'll see. This is what I'm expecting to see from Eric, kind of going forward.
Yeah, for reference there, Jake Ferguson being number 1 tight end, 40 overall. Ashton Genty is the RB12, and he's number 46 overall. So our best tight end in half PPR fantasy this year is equivalent to about a low-end RB1, high-end RB2, which is kind of interesting. But back to the analysis. Yeah, I mean, we all knew this was going to happen with Willie at some point or another. Still, by no means eliminated from any playoff contention. He's still 1 game. Actually, he's tied right now for the 8 seed, just losing by points for tiebreaker. There's still a lot of football left to be played here, and I know we've been kind of bagging on Willie's team. He still has to make some moves. He has by far the lowest average points for. He's scoring less than 105 points per game right now. Next closest is Jason at 109. So has to figure it out. Eric's gotten hot. I think he's one of the hotter teams in the league right now, behind Trevor and potentially Colin. Willie's got to turn around. Eric got to keep doing what he's doing. Hopefully, his RB1 and 2 kind of pick it up in the coming weeks.
Colin, you were the 2nd highest point scorer this week, just behind. Excuse me, you were the highest point scorer this week, just in front of Trevor by about a point, and got a 40-point win over a team that beat the median, which that doesn't happen very often, that a team beats the median and still is like not competitive in the head-to-head, which is why we introduced the median, to avoid outcomes like 0-1 week for, Josh having a pretty solid week himself. But 11-3 now, and 1 game off the top spot there, and you're riding an 11-game win streak. So I'll let you sort of weigh in on where you're at.
Yeah, well, I would prefer to not be the 1 seed. I don't want to be the 1 seed. Or if I'm the 1 seed, I want to break that curse. because I think I think there has been a championship who's been the number one seed in the regular season. I'd have to look at it, but it doesn't seem like being the number one seed is, equates to a championship. I will say that I have scored more points in every single week than the previous week. So I find that amazing, awesome. I love that. That's positivity. I'm going to ride this high, but I know that the drop off is coming. I know Jonathan Taylor's game of three touchdowns a game will just, maybe not come to an end, but like that's unbelievable. He's had 3 games of three touchdowns. If he's doing that in week 17 and 18 and weeks, after week 12 essentially, then that's incredible. Sorry. Stop that. My cats are going crazy. What's it called? Jonathan Taylor. Yeah, 3 touchdowns. That's unbelievable. If he does it again, that's got to be a record, right? Like four games with three or more touchdowns in a game. That he's doing crazy stuff. I think he'll slow down. Sam, you said it last week. I had multiple guys scoring 20 plus points. I had my defense scoring 20 points. Love to see that. But and 160 again, back-to-back weeks of 160. I feel like this is going to come to an end. And Nick, I play you next week. We'll get to that. But I have a few key players out. I have the Seahawks out. So JSN, a number 4 top 5 receivers out. And so the 11-game win streak is nice. This pinnacle, this climax to this point in the season. I wish it was in the second half of the season, but I'm more cautious than I am happy right now. This week means nothing. I need this to happen at the end of the season. I need this to happen, when it really counts. I still haven't had any major injuries, and that's going to come to an end too. It's the NFL. It's unbelievable that I haven't had any major injuries or injuries for that matter. That's going to change my outlook. So that's where I'm at. I'm more thinking about the negative of where my team is at than the positive, which is unbelievable to say as the 3 seed, 11-3, and scoring 130 points for the past like 6 straight weeks. So we'll see where we go from here, but that's where I'm at.
Not to say that Josh didn't have any bulletin board material this week too. I know he was talking some smack in the chat. You might have potentially aided in what would have been Alex's win last week with the Dawson Knox debacle. But you still beat him by 40 points, which is kind of incredible. And Josh's team is not bad. He's still squarely in the 7th seed right now. So it's kind of crazy that he's a pretty formidable opponent. You still beat him by 40. So yeah, awesome win. You're definitely probably the hottest team from a power rankings perspective right now, and definitely by a win streak perspective.
It's weird seeing Marvin Harrison, Maserati Marv, not make a year 2 leap. I feel like I was definitely expecting him. Marvin Harrison was one of those guys that got drafted like a couple spots before me, and I definitely had him like top of my queue if he had gotten back to me. He went at the beginning of the 4th round to Josh. Wide receiver 23 or 29 last year, wide receiver 33 so far this year. And he hasn't had his bye. He has his bye now. So, that's like, probably a little bit even inflated relative to how he's played so far this year. 4 weeks where he hasn't even scored 7 points. It's a little disheartening. I was expecting a lot more from, a blue blood prospect, and I know Josh was as well. I feel like if Josh is going to make a run, Marvin Harrison is probably the guy that he needs to get going more than anybody.
Well, he's going to be one of these year 3 breakout guys. Remember?
Yes.
Remember how we were talking about those?
And then he'll be one of those guys. He will be added to the list that AI helped me prepare.
Exactly. Yeah. No, he's a perfect candidate for that.
Exactly. Yeah. But Theo Joshin with another touchdown. So that's a bright spot for him. Tight end 12.
Damn. I didn't realize that he was tight end 12 this year. That's crazy what Jackson Dart can do. Quick shine or shade, just to go back to Colin's team real quick. probably one of the most annoying players to own this year has to be Justin Fields, right? 3 games above 25 points, 3 games below 5 points. Is Justin Fields like droppable at this point?
I think so. I mean, he might not even be the starting quarterback on his team anymore, and he seems to be, allergic to the forward pass when he's playing. So, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if he is trotted out in a leather helmet next week.
Yeah, I mean, he is my QB2, so I don't necessarily need him until week 14. The Jets have already announced that Tyrod Taylor is the starter. But by week 14, he might get the starting job back because Tyrod Taylor is kind of injury prone. He's also not the guy that everyone thinks he is when he's not playing. When he's not playing, you think he's great, but when he is playing, you're like, oh, that's right, that's who Tyrod Taylor is. So I don't know if I'm not going to drop him. Essentially, I don't have a QB2. Maybe there's some QB2s out there on the waivers that I am not totally aware of. But I'm not going to drop him unless unless I need a QB for week 14, which I will, and he could still be available for a start in that week. It looks like he's playing Miami. So if he's the starting quarterback against Miami, I am playing Justin Fields without hesitation.
That's fair. That is fair. Next we have Alex up against Jason. Neither one of these teams beat the median. I think we predicted that this was going to be a low scoring one, if I recall correctly. 19 points, the difference here. But Alex continues to be one of the surprises of the season. Jason is sitting there on the cut line in the 8th spot. He's got $85 of fab to play with as well, but a really nice win head to head for Alex. Tough that he couldn't get over the median. I don't know. I mean, Travion Henderson has just been a weird one to figure out. Collins guy, Alec Pierce, huge Alec Pierce fan, with 12 points out of the flex. So that was good. And Jamar Chase, swallowing up receptions with 16 of them. So nice week. Overcame a -6 from his defense. It's hard to win in this league when the defense puts you in a 24-point hole, but Alex was able to do it. So nice job.
Yeah, well done, Alex. Getting the win, not the median win. But that doesn't really matter. He's sticking with it here. He's sticking in the playoff hunt. He does have a strong team. But lately I'm not sure he's gonna have enough firepower to make a run. He's gonna need Jamar Chase to have 30 every single game to live up to the title chasing name. And I'm not sure Jason has enough firepower at all. We were waiting for Rashee Rice to come back, and he did what he was supposed to do, but the rest of his team is just not there. I mean, Brian Thomas, I don't know what's going on with him. DJ Moore, like he's like a forgotten piece of that offense. Like they're such a talented guy, and like they either don't want to give him the ball or they can't get him the ball. It doesn't really make sense to me. But between Alex and Jason, I know these two guys are bros. I'm sure there was some individual shit talk amongst them, and Alex came up on top because he just simply has the better team.
Yeah, not all the depth for both of these teams. I mean, Alex has Will Shipley and Justice Hill as backup running backs, and not a ton of wide receiver depth outside of Darius Slayton, who I don't know who has played in a couple of weeks. So same kind of goes for Jason too. Kayshon Boutte is kind of a bright spot in that offense, but you never really know who's going to get the ball every week at the receiver position for those Patriots. So they definitely have some fab to spend, both of them, I believe. I don't know if Alex has spent too much fab this year.
He's got 73.
Okay. Alex, speaking of Justin Fields, Alex might have a decision to make at his QB2 spot. Nick, I know he pulled up Geno Smith.
Yeah.
Putting up 2.78 points, 10 completions for 67 yards. One of the more horrendous starting quarterback fantasy line days that I can remember, with the exception of maybe Tua this week. But that's crazy. Alex is definitely going to have to spend some of that fab to build some depth in the coming weeks, especially with buys coming up.
Yeah, Gino hasn't scored double-digit points in fantasy since week 3. That's tough. He's had, in the last 4 weeks, 3 touchdowns and 6 picks. He finally did not throw a pick this week, but also did not throw a touchdown. And to your point, only 67 yards. He did have a fumble this week, though. So, yeah, I think Gino is certainly droppable, even if he gets guys like Bowers and Myers back. He just hasn't shown the ability to do it.
Yeah, and they're thinking that a few pieces of the Raiders are tradable. And apparently Max Crosby isn't going to be traded, but Jacoby Myers has requested a trade. So it'd be interesting to see if he goes to a, any sort of relevant team. It doesn't have to be like, a top caliber team, but any sort of relevant team who's in the hunt. I'd be curious to see where he goes. And that instantly ups his value because that dude is talented and a, valuable receiver.
Yep. Then the second most interesting matchup, 2 blue bloods going head to head this week. Johnny comes out on top. I know Cam sort of started making some moves to set himself up for the future. This was a deferred gratification play from Cam in the trade market this week. So Cam, I'd be curious on your thoughts on the moves that you made, but also your matchup against he who shall not be named on this podcast.
Yeah, I mean, you take every week seriously, but this was definitely a week where, Puka was out. I didn't know if Puka was going to play. Of course, Marion Hampton's out for the next couple of weeks. And it kind of started on Thursday. I knew as soon as that game started and Jalen Warren was getting the majority of those carries, I should not have started Kenneth Gainwell, even though it wouldn't have really mattered who I put in. It was just too large of a gap to kind of overcome. Happy that the guy scored 107 without, arguably my 2 best players who are not playing this week. So to your point, I figured that the next couple of weeks are going to be bumpy as Puka comes back from injury and Buka seems to already be back. And I kind of get back to full strength with some of the pieces that I purchased. But yeah, I mean, we kind of shit talked Johnny on his average points for last week and his remaining strength of schedule. This is definitely a big one for him, right? This is potentially a playoff game in the future for him. So a playoff caliber game, I should say. Christian McCaffrey looks like Christian McCaffrey of damn near 2019, 2020, 2021. So yeah, I knew this was going to kind of happen, but I still want to put your best foot forward, and it's just not my week.
And
I want to start with
Johnny starting Oronde Gadsden too. He ended up going for 26, and I think a lot of people would have scratched their head about that lineup start. So kudos to Johnny for that play. Sorry, go ahead, Colin.
Absolutely. No, I was going to say I'm going to start with Johnny's team because he just took the number 1 seed. Whether that's a good or a bad thing, only time will tell. But putting up 150 against the number 1 seed and then taking that number 1 seed spot, that's a statement win in my opinion. Regardless of what Cam's doing on his side, I'll get to his team. But Johnny's team is very much the front runner for championship because, like you said, he's starting Oronde Gadsden seemingly out of the blue, and it pays off for him. That's having faith in your guys. And his backup tight end is Jonnu Smith, who, even though they have 3 startable tight ends in that Steelers offense, that guy's he's a relevant tight end in this league. He's starting Mike Evans, who's now out for the season, but you look at his bench and he's got 2 receivers that are going to take that starting spot that scored double digits this week between Jordan Addison and Xavier Legette. So Johnny is set up to take some punches, but not get, fall all the way down. I'm scared of Johnny's team because I think it's still ramping up, right? He is 12-2, but I think he had a slow start with points. Now he's showing up with the points. If I were to look, I'd put money on the fact that he's been scoring 120 for the past 3 straight weeks. So Johnny is nobody to mess with. On the other hand, Cam's team. This seemingly looks like an intentional bye week for him. He is with the trades that went down this week. this is classic Cam setting up for the second half of the season, which we all don't want. Hey, Cam, chill the fuck out, right? That's what we're all saying. Um, it's crazy when you look at those trades without the context. Those seem like steals, right? But you know that the number one seed is getting the hurt guys, and the number one seed is getting Emeka Abuka and Omarion Hampton for the second half of the season. You know they're going to show up now. You know that they're going to be put back into that starting lineup and get 30 carries and 30 targets. So Cam is also obviously a legit contender for this championship, and these are probably the two top teams. I mean, that's number one and number two. But as from my perspective, these are the two teams I'm most worried about. Trevor's in this kind of, in this race as well. But we're looking at two of the best teams playing against each other, literally 1 versus 2. And 107, that's a low number. But Cam's team is set up for this second half of the season. And once Nakua comes back, which should be this week, right? Very optimistic about this return after the week 8 bye. So he has another bye week. Minor ankle sprain. He'll be back. Yeah, this is going to be the number 1 and 2 seed going into the playoffs. I can tell you that. And they'll see each other in the championship if all is, stays on the course that they're on.
And I like keeping tabs on Jalen Hurts because I said after the draft that he was my one that got away. I was really pissed that I didn't get an opportunity to take him. Like Cam, I don't normally take quarterbacks early. And Jalen was the one that I was going to be willing to take early if I got him in what round? Yeah, in the 3rd round. And he's QB3, number 5 overall player. So continuing to keep the squad afloat, that was a really good pick there in the late 3rd.
It's kind of crazy that that he was 3rd round pick, but he's actually not even the best quarterback on my team right now. It's really hard to not start Jalen Hurts with the rushing upside, but Dak Prescott has had probably one of the best years of his career with the firepower he has in Dallas now. So he does have a bye coming up, Jalen Hurts, week 9, so Dak will definitely get his looks, and it's going to be more of a matchup play moving forward than it was during the first 6 weeks of the year. But yeah, it's cool to be fortunate to have 2 pretty elite quarterbacks.
Top 3 quarterbacks, yeah.
I wonder, could one of them be used in another potential buy now pay later move? That could be another guy that folks might have interest in.
As the host of the podcast of the ILBATDs League, you are not supposed to be giving out good ideas.
Well, I don't know what to say. You taught me how to do that, so. And last but not least, this was the main event, the one that College Game Day went to this week. Troy, in desperation mode, made the moves that he had to make. I have to say, it's rare that I look at trades and I'm like, great job by both teams, but I really felt that way after the moves that you guys made. Troy needed to unlock value now. He can't worry about the playoffs. And you on the flip side had that luxury. So that was the exact example of a win-win trade that it was kudos to both of you for making those moves. To be honest, I think Rob needs to be more active. And I know he pokes around and he, sends some messages and he's interested, but Troy forced the issue this week and he was rewarded with a 2-0 week, and he's 1 week outside of the playoffs right now. For everything that's gone wrong, although he is incredibly lucky, as we discussed, he's 1 week away from being in the playoffs.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This is the type of shit that we were talking about when we're talking about who needs to trade. What would you do if you were to trade in this position? I can't fault Troy here. He did exactly what he's supposed to do in getting the value now. Making the playoffs would be a win of a season from Troy's and Rob's perspective. Winning a 1st round matchup would be fucking insane. And then anything beyond that, then this was the best trade in the league history, if arguably. The only fault I can give Troy is that he made the trade with the 5-time champ. He made the trade and set up Cameron Cooper to win another championship. And if that happens, I promise you we'll all be just as disappointed as Troy is for making the trade.
We are
Because
going to have to charge Troy with aiding and abetting for sure.
we might have to. There's I mean, look, you got to be selfish. You got to make the playoffs, and then it's anybody's game. But in my opinion, I think this gives Cam the best chance. Even as the former 1 seed, best team through 7 weeks, he just upped his chances even higher with these types of trades. But I get it. You know, there's some fault there, but he did what he had to do. I mean, even my trade with Troy, he got Quinshon Judkins for Justin Jefferson, and through 1 week, he won that trade by 3 times. Justin Jefferson's only got me 10. Quinshon Judkins got him 26. We'll see what the rest of the season looks like, but these are the types of moves you got to be making. And it's and beyond the moves, finally, Bo Nix does something for him. I know he's a big believer in Bo, and he puts up 40. I want to say that's the high point for a single player in the league in the season so far, is that 39-9. So well done, Troy. You did what you had to do. You're on your way to making the playoffs now. But unfortunately, I think Cam is still going to be the bigger beneficiary of all the moves that have taken place.
Yeah, fortunate that, Ibuka actually comes back in place this week too, not to take away from the game we're reviewing here. But for those keeping score at home, Colin, you kind of inspired me. Within both of those trades, I'm not going to count the Amir Hampton and Kamani Vidal trades because he's still in the IR, but the Pickens and Montgomery trade for Ibuka and Harvey, Troy's at 15.1 points, it looks like, between his 2 players, and I'm at 14.5. So let's see how that went down for the rest of the year with some of the deferred gratification. But, I mean, all of a sudden, Troy is a little bit of a force, right? I mean, 1 game out of the playoffs, currently a higher average points for than the 3 teams ahead of him at the cut line. He's at 112.6, Jason's at 109, Nick's at 108, and Willie's at 104. So definitely, cannot be dismissed by the early season woes. To Nick's point, 1 week out. And we all know how powerful the 8 seed can be in these playoffs. 8, 7 seed is some of the, the more powerful seeds in playoff history here. So I don't really want to see Troy in that 8 or 7 seed, just 1 week out from these big trades.
So let's, as we talk about, sitting here with 5 weeks to go in the regular season, currently the teams outside the cut line are myself, Willie, Troy, and Rob in that order. Who are the 4 teams that you have right now outside the playoffs when week 12 is done?
Yeah, I mean, I'm replacing Jason with either you or Troy. We'll see how much movement Troy can make. I mean, there's still a lot of movement to be had. And you have a lot of guys coming back too that are just are key pieces in that offense. It's not just a few guys coming back. Those are some of the best players on their respective offenses coming back for your team. Just when will they come back? But between you and Troy, you guys should replace Jason. We'll see about Josh. I think Josh is still strong enough to hold on to that 7 spot or stay above the line. But only time will tell. And I think Jason's weaker than the 4 teams below him.
I'm gonna have a hot take here. I actually think that Alex makes a bit of a slide here in the coming weeks. Did not like the performance against Jason. Has a couple of key players coming up on bye, right? He has Baker out in 2 weeks. I'll probably have to start Gino or whoever is his quarterback, his QB2 at that time. Jamar Chase out in week 10, Trey McBride out in week 8. I don't know what he's going to do with TreVeyon Henderson in his running back 2 spot. I mean, I've seen some reports, well, not reports, but people posting on Twitter that he might even be droppable in some leagues, which is crazy to say with all the hype he got in preseason. So my hot take is that Alex actually, come playoff time, he's going to be really flirting with that cut line. And the hot take is that he's actually going to miss the playoffs. And I think it's going to be Nick and Troy squeezing in the last 2 teams in. Jason also out.
Yeah, I don't have Alex missing the playoffs. I could see him slipping down in the standings a little bit. I agree. It feels to me like it's a 3-team race. I've kind of written Willie off as well. I mean, which we do that at our peril because we all know like that the Bills can put up some insane fantasy stats. So we all could look stupid at the end of the regular season for saying that, but it does feel to me like it's probably me, Jason, and Troy pushing for that last playoff spot. I'm gonna say Troy gets it. I really like the moves that he made. I think he's in a good spot. He doesn't have a lot of fab left, but I don't know that he needs to make any more like big acquisitions, unless injuries continue to rear their ugly head. But I think he continues to methodically march up the standings, and maybe it comes down to like week 12 between me and Troy or something of that nature, to see who gets in. So I'm gonna say he squeaks in. And I'm just looking at the week 12 matchups. I play Willie in week 12, which is fortunate for me. And Troy has Johnny. So that's tough. He's gonna need to basically get in front of me or Willie. Because you would think like the winner of that one, Jason will play Josh. So that could be also like, win and you're in type situation. Troy will probably need to pull a week 12 upset of Johnny in order to get in. All right. Anything else you want to talk about before we look at week 8?
One other thing, I'm just going to pull up my phone to validate here, but I updated the rest of the season strength of schedule with the new rankings and new average points for. It looks like Rob actually has the second easiest remaining strength of rank and strength of average points for. So, I don't want to write him off either. He's 1-13, hasn't had a head-to-head win all season, but it looks like the schedule kind of opens up here for him. And I'm just going to pull up his schedule here real quick to see who he plays. He's got Josh, Jason, Willie, Nick, and then me. So, based off of the performance of at least Jason and Willie, he might have 2 head-to-head win opportunities right there. That could be super important come playoff time. So not going to totally write him off yet. Just saying the schedule opens up for him a little bit here to make a move.
Yeah, he definitely needs Lamar to get healthy, and play a key role. I guess it'll be interesting to see like, is Lamar playing at the end of the year? Are the Ravens competitive late in the year? That always it becomes an interesting factor too of like what teams what.
live roster moves. I love to see it. Like so random too, like just absolutely so random.
Oh, I just saw that. They just dropped Jake Tonjes while we're talking here. That's
Yeah,
funny.
sorry. I mean, it makes sense. Kittle's back, even though Kittle did nothing. Literally had 0 points, but makes sense.
Yeah. But yeah, what I was saying is, towards the end of the regular season, in terms of fantasy playoffs time, it also becomes interesting whether like certain teams feel like they're not competitive. Do the Ravens, if they're like so far out of it, and if Lamar's like not healthy, do they rest him? So that could be an interesting like wild card too, to see how motivated is Lamar in weeks 11 and 12.
Yeah. Hopefully they're not too out of it. The Ravens, they're always a fun team to watch between Derrick Henry and Lamar. I don't want them to be out of it and then they're like just done for the season and they call the season early.
Right. All right, let's talk week 8. Before we dive into the matchups, no waiver wire activity yet as we're recording this on Tuesday. But again, big trending guys that are available. For those looking for a quarterback, you have Joe Flacco, Tyrod Taylor, also Andy Dalton, I guess, if you're into that sort of thing. And then other guys, not a ton of like starter quality guys available, but some guys who are probably good bench stashes and could become fantasy relevant depending on like injuries and continued good play. Like some RB2s, Brashard Smith looking like an interesting piece in Kansas City. What are you guys think in terms of fab this week? Big fab week, not a big fab week.
I think most of those guys get picked up, so volume is there, but the amount of fab spent shouldn't be too high. These are all insurance plays. None of these guys are getting picked up and starting right away, unless you have a QB issue with Joe Flacco. Um, these guys are insurance plays, maybe second half of season plays for injury insurance, that sort of thing. But you know, I expect most of them, at least all the skill position guys right there to get picked up.
I think this is going to be, I mean, the only thing that kind of stands out to me when I'm looking at it, there's some pretty high projected defenses who have some pretty enticing, defensive matchups this week. So I think there might be some higher than average spend on defense specifically. But besides that, I mean, that happens every single week where we have, guys dropping 1 or 2 fab. I think that average might increase this week, but a lot of the guys, Nick, to your point, they just seem kind of like longer term stashes. And it doesn't really seem to me like there's anybody in this league who has a glaring need at quarterback unless Lamar is hurt for another week. But I think this is more of a stash them while you can for the cheap and then defense.
Yeah, that Colts pickup will be huge. If that's what you mean, specific top 5 defense, and they're playing a bottom 32 offense. So
I had them last week, and I thought about keeping them. Who did they play? Oh, they played the Chargers, and they were projected to get like 3 points. And I thought about just being like, I'm gonna bite the bullet and just hold on to them as my defense for this week. But I decided if I missed the median by a couple points and had an opportunity to get a better defensive matchup, that I was going to be pissing myself in a playoff fight. If I was Cam with the luxury to, spend some wins, maybe I would have held on to them. But yeah, had to let them go, and we'll try to win them back on the waiver wire. That's for sure. So I like having Daniel Jones at the top of my roster and the Colts at the bottom. All right. Well, we have a matchup among podcast hosts, which is always fun. Colin, you alluded to this. You're on an 11-game win streak. I'm sort of the wounded animal backed into a corner here. I'm not going to back myself. I don't think my team's healthy enough yet. Maybe in a playoff matchup, I might be able to put a scare into you. But I think your team is just stronger than mine at the moment, even though I get James Cook back from a bye, have CD back finally. We're going to need a tight end because the Raiders are on bye, and those are my only tight ends. So we'll be making some roster moves for sure. We will not be playing the Carolina defense against Buffalo. I can assure you of that. So, the projection should get a little closer than 65-35 or 70-30 on my phone. But I don't think this is going to be that close of a game.
Yeah, I'm backing myself. I do think this will be kind of a closer game. Just because I don't have my strongest lineup. I mean, I know between Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet, they're not really doing much. Because Charbonnet's vulturing all of Walker's touchdowns, and it doesn't seem like they even know who the RB1 is there. But I'm missing JSN, top 5 receiver, and that hurts.
Top 1 receiver.
He's the number 1 receiver. Oh my God, I did not know that. That's unbelievable. There you go. I'm missing the best receiver in fantasy football this week against you. So I'm forced to start the likes of Christian Kirk and Troy Franklin, which is an expensive fob spend, but hasn't done much except for caught a deflected touchdown last week. My only other option is Evan Ingram, but I'm not. Maybe I do start him. They are playing Dallas, and those have been pretty high scoring affairs. So between Troy Franklin and Evan Ingram, I don't know who I'm starting at the moment. Troy Franklin. I'm not feeling too confident about this week, but I am luckily enough playing you. So I still think I get the win, and that's why I'm backing myself. We'll see what the median is. It seems to be right around the 115, 120 mark. Other than that outlier of 130. So yeah, picking myself, but I don't expect it to be, any crazy number.
Yeah, I lean Colin here, but I think that Nick is going to score over the median. I think you're going to get at least 1 win this week. I love what I saw out of Tez Johnson on Monday night. I think with Mike Evans going down, that role really opens up for Tez Johnson. I don't think Chris Godwin is going to be fully healthy, even if he does play this coming week. Obviously, CeeDee Lamb back into the fold. And then, I mean, what a week for Terry McLaurin to come back. Like, you desperately need some depth at receiver. Would love to see that game turn into a bit of a shootout if Jaden Daniels plays against Kansas City on Monday night. So I think on Monday night, you get over the median, but I still think Colin wins head-to-head.
Yeah, that probably feels fair. This is bye-mageddon this week as well. 6 teams on bye, including some very fantasy relevant teams like the Seahawks, the Rams, the Lions, and also the Raiders, Jags, and Cards. So a lot of teams on bye. People are to the point about there might not be the high dollar spend on the waiver wire this week, but some teams are going to need to find some guys. So yeah, it could be a low median week. So 110 might get you a median win this week. We'll see. Willie against Alex. This is an important one for Willie, obviously, being right there in the thick of things. Currently, Sleeper has Alex as a 59% to 41% favorite, but they both have kickers on bye to the point we were just speaking about, and Alex has a tight end on bye. He hasn't fully set his lineup yet. 3 tight ends on his bench to choose from, unfortunately. So that's the good news for him. I think Alex gets a win. I think this one might be close. I'm going to say that the Bills coming off a bye have a very good game. Maybe even both of these teams beat the median this week, but I think Alex in a nail biter.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. Willie looks like he's actually starting both Kansas City running backs, both Buffalo receivers. So he's banking on those 2 teams to have big games. And Alex is kind of sliding down the ranks lately, but his team is still stronger. Like Jamar Chase, is easy 25 to 30 points. The only person on Willie's team who can even match that is his quarterback. I think Willie can actually pull this one out. This could be low scoring, but I think I'm gonna give this one to Willie for beating Alex here.
Yeah, even though Alex has been kind of in a bit of a skid recently, I'm still going to go Alex. I think he needs to make some fab moves this week. Again, I don't love that Traylon Henderson is starting for him in his RB2 spot, but he doesn't really have too many better options. So he might be in line for potential trade opportunity, but I think Alex wins here. Again, low scoring game. I'm not sure he beats the median.
Most desperate team in the league. Rob making live roster moves while we're recording this against Josh. I'm going to say this is where Rob starts his climb. I think he gets back into the thick of things, maybe makes it a little interesting. Maybe Josh Reynolds behind Tyrod Taylor throwing the pigskin in New York can unlock something for his roster. Maybe Taysom Hill finally does something here. So give me Rob in an upset over Josh.
This is just like the last matchup we were talking about. Teams that are not hot right now, not looking great. I don't know who has the better outlook for this week. I mean, Rob is still starting Malik Washingbeard. Like, we're still on him. And Josh Reynolds, maybe Tyrod Taylor gives him a better outlook. And Taysom Hill gets one of his, once in a lifetime rushing touchdowns from the quarterback position. But he doesn't have a lot of receivers to plug and play there. I mean, Darnell Mooney, he needs a breakout game soon. On the other side, Josh's team, like all these guys are just not having the good seasons. I mean, Waddle's outlook is shot now because Tua might be down for the count, playing in Atlanta, who has a sick, nasty defense. I mean, this one's a tough pick. I'll give Rob. I want him to get a head-to-head win, and I think this could be the week.
Yeah, if you go to Josh's team, he's one of the shallower benches this week. Looks like he had a bit of a fire sale. Some of his players, 3 empty bench spots right now, uncharacteristic of deep bench Josh's. I think Josh wins this one. Too many question marks at wide receiver for Rob. We talked about it before. And again, a bit of a, abundance at running back with Barkley, Scatabo, Chase Brown, and Rico Dowdle, and Tyler Algier, who's known as work hunter too. Again, kind of dropping some notes here that might be an opportunity to spread the wealth around your roster if you trade away some of these running backs. So I still think that Rob loses to Josh, but he has been a bit of a high scorer recently, so I think he gets another meeting win this week.
Do you think Rob knows that he doesn't get any points for kick return yards by starting Malik Washington? Because he's over 100 yards, and the 2 weeks before had 96 and 98, almost 100 yards of kick return yards the last 4 weeks from Malik Washington. So in a league where you do get those points, Malik Washington is a must-start player, but unfortunately that is not this league. So, but he did get 8 targets and 5 catches, both season highs. So maybe he's starting to come around. Maybe Rob does need to leave him in the lineup. We'll see. Next up, Cam, your game against Jason. 2 teams that this could be a first-round playoff matchup potentially, depending on what happens from here. I'll give you the floor. How do you feel about your matchup?
Again, still kind of not at full strength. Puka is still out, of course, on bye. But I do like my chances here. We've talked a little bit about Jason, his wide receiver core. Looks like his wide receiver 1 this week is going to be Rashee Rice and then Jerry Jeudy at wide receiver 2. So I like my chances in this game, so I'm going to pick myself. It's going to be closer. These next couple weeks are going to be pretty close, but I like me here.
Colin, how do you feel about this one?
Yeah, even not at full strength, I think Cam's got this. Jason, he's got to make some lineup changes, obviously, which he should have enough to fill out a roster at least. He's got a good kicker, got Derrick Henry. Tyler Warren's having a good season. He's got some players that could go out. They just haven't really been doing that this year consistently or at all. But I still think Cam's firepower is there. He's picking better than Jason, and Jason has been picking at a good rate this year. Cam's picking at 91%. Jason's 90%. Yeah, Cam's got this. I do feel like this could be high scoring though. I just have a feeling.
I'm gonna pick the upset here. I think this is a week where Jason, when he gets his lineup set, I think Sleeper will probably have him as the favorite actually. We'll see before kickoff of the games, but my prediction here is I think Caleb Williams outscores Jalen Hurts this week, and I think that's the key to victory for Jason. Caleb is playing the Baltimore defense. Jalen might not need to throw very much, might not need to score a lot of points to beat the Giants. We'll see. So I'm going to say Caleb outscores Jalen, and that leads Rashees Warrants to a victory here. Next, 2 of the more fearsome teams in the league, Trevor against Johnny. Johnny with the better record right now, as we talked about, the 1 seed on a 7-game win streak himself. But Trevor currently 70% favorite. It looks like they've both set their lineups. Trevor has a ton of guys on bye this week, but he's still projected at 126. That's how strong his lineup is. He's missing 4 players and still at a 126. So, yeah, I mean, that's why he's so feared. But I think, Johnny's been quiet, but he's mighty. I think Johnny gets a win here.
I'm taking Trevor. I mean, the projection might be skewing me, but I'm taking Trevor. His team is hot. All those players are hot right now, except for Zay Flowers. Everyone else seems to be clicking with the offense. Whereas Johnny's team, he does have Mariota to start in case Daniels is out. But Trevor's just too strong. Too strong. Give me Trevor.
Yeah, I think a lot of this hinges on Jaden Daniels' health. I think if he's good to go, this game's a lot closer. We saw how Mariota played this last week. Got 3.92 points in relief of James Daniels being hurt. But Kansas City's defense is very good, and I don't think Mariota has the chops to hang with him if he starts. If that's the case, give me Trevor.
And last but not least, hottest team in the league, Troy against Eric. Again, currently, let's see. Eric has not fully set his lineup. He has Kyron in there on a bye at the moment. Only Ollie Gordon on the bench to replace him with. So we'll see whether he needs to make a lineup move or does he play Gordon. 94-93 is the projection in sleeper, so maybe this is a low scoring one. I'm gonna say Eric wins this one. Maybe this is low scoring, but Eric is starting the chosen one at quarterback in Jackson Dart. We know he's going to put up a great game as always. So I think Eric on the back of Jackson Dart gets a win.
Yeah, I think that's the right pick. Unfortunately, Troy might not be able to set a full lineup. I mean, obviously waivers are in play, but he's starting Ray Davis, who's done absolutely nothing this year. Promising running back, but completely non-existent. If Nico Collins is out with the concussion, he has to start Cameron Johnson, who's a previous waiver pickup, who did nothing this week after having a good week prior to. He needs his heavy hitters to do the most. And when you're asking your best players to do all the work, those aren't, that's not a formula for a lot of points. It just doesn't happen every week. And he put up 140 last week. Putting up 140 again this week will be very tough. And maybe Eric can't even put up 140, but both these teams are having lineup issues. They'll be hitting the waiver. I'm expecting both of these teams to be getting those insurance plays and probably starting them at this point. I said that when you're picking up those kinds of waivers, you're not necessarily starting them. Both these teams could start the guys on the trending charts. So we'll see what happens there. This has to be a low scoring one. We'll see. I'm gonna have to pick Eric, even though we all were proud of Troy and making that move. But Eric looks like he might, just end the positivity with after 1 week.
Yeah, by defaulting both of these teams. I see Brock Purdy is projected to get some points this week, but the news is that there's no certainty he returns. It'd be great week for him to return. That Houston defense does not look very good after what we saw last night, and then he gets the Giants in a couple weeks. So if he can get Brock Purdy and some of those weapons back, Juwan Jennings back to health, Ricky Pearsall might be back, and something George Kittle played this week, but it was kind of a ramp-up game. I'm not sure I like even though Jackson Dart kind of flamed the Eagles defense just 2 weeks ago, I kind of like Purdy in the start here. That being said, I'm going to lean Eric's team, but I think it's closer if Purdy is healthy and kind of pops off. But on the bench.
Any final thoughts before we wrap here, boys?
Just want to take a look at the median. I think this could be one of the lower medians of the season. I'm going through it. Week 2 was our lowest median so far at 103. I'm not sure it's going to be that low, but I would venture to guess that the median could be below 110. Every median was above 116. Usually 116, 117, the high of 130, and the low of 103. Signer's shade, this median will be above 110.
I'm going to shade it. I think with 6 teams on bye, I think people are going to be stretching their lineups this week. So I'll shade it.
Yeah, I'm going to shade it too. I think there's going to be a couple teams that pop off and get over 140, but I don't think that's more than like 3 teams. And I think a lot of teams, Troy and Eric, the kind of the golden children of this week, are going to rely on some waiver wire pickups. So I think we're going to see it below 110.
Yeah, fair. I would say the same. It might be like at 110, but that'll count as below 110. But this is the part of the season where it's kind of hitting a lull, where we've been watching football every Sunday for 7 straight weeks. We're in mid-October. the rest of the fall is going to pick up speed, and same with football. So, you know, low scoring, but I think it should be, we're just going to chug along here. But keep it up, boys. We're getting through it.
Cam, have you, I guess he's 4 games out. So with 10 games left, still a while before we have, like magic numbers to eliminate anybody. At least 2 weeks for Rob of life.
Yep. He's got to start now. Let's see if he makes a trade in the next 48 hours.
There you go. All right, boys. Well, enjoy week 8. We'll be 2/3 of the way through the regular season when you next see our smiling faces.